please do. We have our staffers in the back there. They're collecting question cards to consolidate with Julia's Zoom cards. So please feel free to do that. Jeanne Trabulsi calls me on Sundays and strategizes and asks me to file FOIAs. And I kind of refer to her as my boss at times. She's an incredible, incredible activist. And I think she's one of the most effective grassroots organizers I've ever met. So I'm very proud to introduce her. She's going to be talking about 2 initiatives of VCHR. The most important being the, well, I'm not going to say which is the most important one, but you'll know. She spent her career in education, communications, and public relations. So she didn't come to VCHR without skills. She's the coordinator of the Education Committee of the Virginia Coalition for Human Rights. She's been teaching at university K-12 levels for over 14 years. Last night at the dinner, she introduced us to the Refugee Doll Project. So you really have to check that out. I think we have some of that at the registration desk. But we're going to now hear from Jeanne on 2 extremely important topics. Thank you.
Good morning. Can you hear me? My name is Jeanne Trabulsi, and on behalf of the Education Committee of VCHR, I am pleased to tell you about our work to counter proposed edits of Virginia history textbooks by an organization called ICS, or Institute for Curriculum Services. Because building background knowledge is the key to learning new information, here's a brief summary of how we became aware of ICS. In 2018, we saw this webcast notice. It's an interview of ICS Director Kramer Elias with the President of the Jewish Council for Public Affairs. In it, we learned that ICS is a nonprofit organization founded in 2005, dedicated to improving the quality of K-12 education on Jews, Judaism, and Israel. This is their impact nationwide. This is from their website. In the webcast, we learned that ICS has trained more than 6,000 teachers in more than 90 cities, 11 million students in 50 states. Most alarming was the statement made by her when she described working behind the scenes with textbook publishers and claimed that these publishers came to her to write the manuscript before it was published. So VCHR is of the opinion that ICS is not a true education outfit. It's a public affairs and advocacy group. Let's see the evidence. Evidence number 1 from their website. ICS operates under the auspices of the Jewish Community Relations Council of San Francisco. It's financially structured under the 501c3 status of JCHR. And the stated purpose of this JCR is public affairs. In their brochure, it states that it recognizes Israel's integral role in modern Jewish identity and articulates its commitment to Zionism in the Bay Area's Jewish community. Evidence number 2, The Schusterman Family Foundation. ICS is a grantee of the Schusterman Family Foundation. It's the group that takes all freshman representatives to Israel. In some, VCHR believes that ICS is enmeshed with and funded by Israel affinity groups that drive their pro-Israel advocacy. We believe that this results in biased and inaccurate textbooks and in teacher training. Let's look at their tactics. Remember from the previous slide that I said that 6,000 teachers have attended ICS training. From the website, you can see 3 of many of their training modules, the Arab-Israeli conflict being their signature one. Others are environmental challenges and cooperation, and one called anti-Semitism, the longest hatred. We have attended several of these trainings. ICS uses a teaching method that focuses on primary sources, but they are highly selective about what documents they do include in their teaching modules. If you didn't know the story of the Arab world in Israel, you'd think they're pretty good. I remember one student remarking, "The Israelis have offered peace to the Arabs so many times. What else could the Arabs possibly want?" This is an example of one of their edits. So in addition to teacher training, they proposed edits to history textbooks throughout the nation. And for Virginia's last review cycle, ICS proposed hundreds of them for 12 textbooks. Here's an example of one edit found in the World History textbook published by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. The original text read, "Ongoing conflict over Israeli occupied territories." The word occupied territories are crossed out. And the proposed ICS change read, the underlined words, "Ongoing conflict over Israeli control over the West Bank and Gaza." And the ICS comments read that the term occupied territories is a politicized and inappropriate for a public school text. After they got all their edits together, they sent this with a cover letter to the Virginia Department of Education. But ICS didn't send the letter. 3 JCRCs in Virginia sent the letter. They are the JCRCs of Tidewater, Richmond, and Greater Washington. In it, we see that JCRC thanks the Department of Education for making past ICS edits. They state in particular, and I quote, "In particular, we'd like to thank Pearson and McGraw-Hill for the many improvements made to their textbooks made on earlier ICS recommendations." So not only did they do the recent one, but of course they did the one 7 years previous. In order for us to manage all of these hundreds of themes, edits, we put them in themes. And the themes, some of the themes were using sanitizing language, such as this, you can't mention settlers. The settlers become communities. The wall becomes a security fence. Also emphasizing Arab culpability for crisis initiation. You know, the Arabs really started everything, according to ICS. And this one is really problematic for me. They discouraged students from conducting open internet research, and they wanted them to use one of their own research. They relabeled maps, and they deleted all references to Palestine. You can have Palestinian, you can call it mandatory Palestine, but you can never call it Palestine. We also put these edits in a fact sheet so we could send out to legislatures and to Virginia academicians. This is the graphic organizer that we used. You see it has 3 columns. The left-hand column is the theme referencing Palestine only as mandatory Palestine. And in the middle column, you'll see the ICS edit. They want to substitute the word Israel and Palestine to Palestinian instead of Palestine. The reasoning is there is no state of Palestine, nor has there ever been. And the right-hand column, we have inputted text that states our problem with the edit. Over 70% states of the UN have recognized the state of Palestine. So we sent these letters with fact sheet to all Virginia officials, senators, and the publishers. As I told you, the textbooks themselves, even before the IC edits, were highly problematic. We knew we had to do something, but we weren't experts. So we cold called the people that you see up on your slide. They said they'd be willing to help. Some of these people you may know. There's Peter Mandeville, who was senior policy advisor for Secretary of State Clinton. Of course, Larry Wilkerson, chief of staff for Colin Powell. And of course, Dr. Quant, national security advisor, President Jimmy Clinton, and Nora Ericott, and others. So we felt very heartened that they would support us. They were just astounded. They had no idea this was going on. And it sort of made sense because when freshmen come to their classes in college, they know nothing about the Middle East. They know that there's a kind of a desert area, that there's two peoples, one Palestinian, one Israeli. And the students think that the Palestinians are trying to take away Israel land. I mean, that's how ignorant they are because of the textbooks that they've encountered in high school. So we asked these academicians to look at these 5 textbooks, and they did, and we sent them digital copies of the textbooks. And we gave them a graphic organizer to fill out. And here you'll see, you put the problematic passage on the top. From Gaza, Hamas launched frequent rocket attacks on Israel, and the Israeli military responded with airstrikes. And then on the bottom, the scholar writes, once again, the text implies parity. In fact, Israeli attacks on Gaza were massive, resulting in thousands of casualties. So we took all these edits and we sent them to the Department of Education and to the publishers. And to our knowledge, no ICS edits were incorporated in the Virginia textbooks for this cycle. So this is what we did. We, of course, had a press release. We testified before state education legislative agencies. That's me testifying before the money committees, telling them not to spend $78 million on Virginia textbooks that are so faulty. We appeared in webinars and podcasts. And for those of you in other states who are doing this, I feel it's important to reach out to other groups about textbook accuracy, such as the African American History Education Commission. That's what we did, and we have developed a relationship with them because the Virginia textbooks do not tell an inclusive story, do not tell the whole story of African Americans in Virginia either. We've also reached out to the British Committee for the Universities of Palestine. You may have heard that 2 of their scholars have opposed 2 Pearson textbooks, and apparently the teachers' union in Britain were so strong they forced Pearson to withdraw those 2 textbooks. Here's our website. Where do we go from here? We are starting to collect high-quality instructional materials on the Middle East. Virginia is kind of moving away from textbooks. They're finding that teachers are spending an inordinate amount of time, doing their old searching. We are also working on co-hosting a teacher training institute in the summer of 2023. It'll be at Shenandoah University in Winchester. And my 2 cents on how you can ensure accurate textbooks for your state. Please find out when are the cycles of your textbook reviews, when are the cycles of your standards for learning, how is your Department of Education organized, who heads the Social Studies Office, find allies, organize, and push back. Thank you.